North Korea tested a new type of tactical guided weapon, overseen by its leader Kim Jong-un on Thursday. And as state media reported that the launch was a warning to South Korea to stop importing high-tech weapons and conducting joint military exercises with the U.S. While the North had launched missiles and other projectiles before, most recently in May, Thursday's launch was the first of its kind since Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump met at the DMZ last month. So why the missile launch now, and how would this affect the denuclearization talks? For more on this, Professor Park Won-gon, Professor of International Studies at Handong Global University, joins me in the studio today. Hello, Professor.
Well, thanks for having me again.
All right, so South Korea said the two projectiles launched by North Korea were a new type of short-range missile. Tell us more about this, and also how they are different from the ones that North Korea launched before.
Okay, finally, our ROK, JCS, Joint Chief of Staff, has clearly mentioned that this is new type of short-range ballistic missiles. This kind of statement is pretty much different to what we have witnessed back in late May. At the time, also North Korea launched the missiles, but still South Korea and the United States refused. I don't know whether it's the right term or refuse, but they haven't identified the exact what kind of missile it is at this moment. But this time, many people, many experts, including me, we are thinking that this is the new type of ballistic missiles based on the Russian-made Iskander. So this is a very kind of a sophisticated new type of top-notch missiles because first they are using solid fuel, which is the preparedness time is very short compared to these other the type of the missiles that North Korea has currently possessed. And also it can have a so-called ascending flight kind of a method, which means that it can evade this kind of missile defense system. So it is practically very difficult, if not impossible, to detect and actually destroy by the current missile defense system that has possessed by United States and South Korea. And also, it can also have the nuclear warhead. And also range up to, it's a kind of a contentious issue, but as far as I know, it can extend until 1,000 kilometers.
Wow.
So that means if literally it can hit all over the South Korea. And also, it's pretty much similar what they launched back in May. And as I told you, the ROK U.S. government haven't identified it yet, but it seems to me we can see all the pictures because North Korea media outlets clearly show this picture is pretty much similar.
Okay, so a different kind, but similar in a way. But just this week, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un inspected a newly built submarine, and he reportedly said that his country was forced to develop these weapons to eliminate potential and direct threats. So what can we make of this statement?
Well, it is important to know what kind of a real intention the North Korea and Chairman Kim Jong-un has at this particular moment. But it is true that our South Korean government has no intention to give any kind of threat against North Korea. We all witnessed for the past more than 2 years. Our government has tried their best to reconcile and have a cooperation and open to the dialogue to no matter what kind of a behavior the North Korea has. So this is kind of absurd argument. So we need to think about how the behind the kind of intention, the real intention. First of all, after this breakup, this Hanoi summit, North Korea, of course, the North Korea Chairman Kim Jong-un and President Trump, they met Panmunjom June 30th, and they allegedly know that they agreed to have some kind of a working level the discussion and talk between the DPRK and United States. But at this particular moment, I still see there are huge difference between North Korea and United States vis-a-vis the denuclearization process. So from this North Korean perspective, although they kind of promised to have a working level discussion, but if they would join this working level discussion, still they could not get what they want because the United States had changed their position at all.
The gap is so big still.
And yes, it's true. And also on top of that, North Korea has a very reluctant to have a working level discussion. Rather, they want to have a so-called top-down approach, which means that the Chairman Kim Jong-un directly talked this issue with President Trump. So that's why at this moment, I believe they are trying to buy time. and also give some kind of pressure to the President Trump to change the United States position about the denuclearization.
All right, now what's interesting is that the short-range missiles were fired into the East Sea by North Korea, which is where we also witnessed a Russian warplane apparently violating South Korea's airspace on Tuesday. So it seems that the skies over the East Sea were the scene of high tensions between South and North Korea, as well as Russia and China this week, yeah?
Yes, so some people even say that it's kind of a, pre-mediate between, three actors, that is China, Russia, and the North Korea. But I don't think that's the case, because it is true that Russia and China has a plan for a while to have this joint the Air Force exercise in the East Sea, but North Korea is different. If they really have some kind of a collaboration, it would really provoke United States and Donald Trump. But as already mentioned, that the North Korea still they want to have a talk with the President Trump and United States. They do not want to break down the whole process.
Right.
So at this moment, it's kind of coincidence. But it is true that at this particular moment, the East Sea and the Korean Peninsula itself is kind of a very hot point.
Right. Now, going back to North Korean missiles, does the latest test of these short-range ballistic missiles violate UN Security Council resolutions?
Yes, absolutely. That is all kind of a ballistic kind of related launches. Definitely violation of United Nations Security Council, no matter that is ballistic missiles or even the peaceful launch of a satellite, doesn't matter.
Okay.
And also it doesn't matter what range they have, the short, medium, intermediate, or long range, that doesn't matter. All kind of ballistic the launch is the definitely violation of United Nations Security Council. But problem is that United Nations Security Council, they wouldn't have raised problem, issue about the short-range North Korean ballistic missile launch. Although, as I told you, it's a total, absolute violation of the United Nations Security Council, but they do not get any penalty or the resolution about the violation of this one. So I think North Korea, definitely they knew this about and make them as their calculation.
Now, the U.S., however, still kept the door open for dialogue with North Korea despite the news of these missile launches. And U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo actually said that he hopes that the working level talks between North Korea and the U.S. would resume in the next month or so. So where's the U.S. going from here?
Well, bring back us to this late May. There at the time, North Korea launched these very similar missiles 2 times, actually 3 missiles. But at the time, the Secretary Pompeo and President Trump made a very similar statement. And they said this is not a threat to the United States, even not a threat to South Korea and Japan. This is kind of routine behavior, and every country is doing this kind of short-range missile test. Even very recently, President Trump mentioned, I do not care about this one. So I think the United States and President Trump and his administration still have an intention to have this working level dialogue with North Korea. So if they criticize or bring this issue to United Nations Security Council, they will see a very huge kind of a protest by North Korea, and that can have some risk to stop all this the talk and dialogue process. So that's why they worry. And on top of that, still, if Donald Trump criticized this time of the launch of the North Korean missiles, it's kind of self-denial. Because I already mentioned the May, and since May he said several times that this is not a threat, but he couldn't say this time this is a real threat to the United States.
And he kept emphasizing on his good relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Obviously he's not going to say this is a big threat. But then despite speculation that Pompeo might actually meet with North Korean Foreign Minister Lee Yong-ho on the sidelines of the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting that's to take place in Bangkok next week, diplomatic sources have actually said that Lee canceled his trip to Thailand and will not be attending the meeting. So why the cancellation? And can we expect to actually see the working level talks resume between North Korea and the U.S. resume anytime soon now that this cancellation is happening?
The ARF forum, I think Minister of Lee there's a very high chance not to go to ARF forum. And although since 2000, North Korea has only 3 times missed this ARF forum. But so this is a very rare case. But well, think about the North Koreans' behavior for past couple of the weeks, and the North Koreans raise kind of the escalation, the tension. First, they say that from this Ministry of Foreign Affairs statement that they criticized South Korea and United States joint deal, that is 동맹 Alliance 19-2. And then they showed the submarine, the newly built submarine, and then finally yesterday they launched the missiles. That means they do not want to talk or do not have any meaningful kind of contact with the United States at this particular moment. So that's why I believe that Lee Young-ho is not going to go to ARF. And then about the working level talk, well, since we are going to, ROK and United States will start this joint military drill this April 5th to April 23rd. So during those time period, there is a very less likely to have any kind of a working level talk between United States and DPRK because the DPRK already criticized all this joint military drill. So at least we have to wait until the end of August, and it might have a chance to have this kind of dialogue on August. I mean the September. But problem is still either North Korea change their position or United States change their approach to denuclearization. That's the main key, whether they actually have this kind of.
So the joint drills are supposed to take place in August, coming fall?
August.
Okay, because you said April, so I was kind of getting confused over there. But do you think there are any chances that any adjustments could be made in regards to these joint drills in order to kind of tone everything down?
Well, actually, we already made kind of adjustment because we no longer, it's not officially stated yet, but our government and also United States mentioned that unofficially. We are going to change the name. We are not going to call that as 동맹 19-, Alliance 19-. Rather, this is just military drill to prepare this transfer of wartime operation controlled by South Korea. So we are going to focus on that. So it's definitely, we already have make some kind of adjustment.
Okay, now South Korea and Japan, as well as Russian warplanes' recent violation of South Korea's airspace, have all making us wonder whether this trilateral security cooperation between South Korea, Japan, and the U.S. are perhaps weakening.
Well, it is true that it's weakening because the relationship between Japan and South Korea has pretty much deteriorated. So it is, we can say that this trilateral security and cooperation is definitely weakening at this moment. And I also believe that Russia, China, and even North Korea has taken advantage about this weakening about the trilateral cooperation. But more seriously, the United States, President Trump and his policy towards the allies is a little bit changed. It's pretty much different to what the United States has maintained past several decades. No longer United States wanted to play as so-called world police. We are that put a huge pressure on the allied country to raise our burden sharing and responsibility. So of course, I don't think that United States totally refused to have the security guarantee and security assurance for South Korea, but other issues, for example, like this Russians' invasion about our airspace, is depend on first priority and first responsibility is going to South Korea and Japan, so they need to take care of that. So those kind of a change in alliance policy make impact of this Russia and China, of course, North Korea's behavior, recent behavior.
So you think the U.S. won't really actively play the mediating role in trying to boost security cooperation with Japan and South Korea?
Well, systematically, I think definitely the United States will play an active role because this is their vital, the strategic interest to have an enhance and beef up this cooperation among the three countries. But President Trump, he has a different thought always. They think about always this benefit and calculation first. So even we have a serious problem between Japan and South Korea, he probably calculate what kind of benefit the United States government can get. So in that sense, we are facing very different environment compared to the previous years.
Especially considering his America First policies, Now, on Friday, South Korea's parliamentary delegation is to attend a biannual meeting with U.S. and Japanese Japanese lawmakers. Now, what can we expect from that meeting?
Well, definitely they are going to talk about this recent issue between Japan and South Korea and how we can have some kind of breakthrough of this totally deadlock, especially this allegedly know that Japanese government is trying to exclude the country's list.
Right, white list.
So that's going to be a very serious problem. So they are trying their best. But problem is, well, parliamentary Congress on diet, and they have a very limited role. This is more like administration, government job. So I hope that they are going to contribute to some positive way, but we are not sure at this moment they can come up with any kind of a meaningful breakthrough at this moment.
Significant results from it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Thank you so much for your insight today.
All right, thank you.
And that does it for this edition of News in Depth. From all of us here at Arirang, thank you so much for watching, and good night.